Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hello, this is Disney legend Bill Farmer, and you're listening to Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast, where you hear the stories behind the adventures. With your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert.
Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's in theaters, and what's going on in this universe, or shall I say multiverse, of entertainment. I'm Aljon Go, longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars fan and musician and pop culturist. You can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, this is our 200th episode.
What?
Unbelievable.
Let the
Unbelievable.
Let the ticker tape parade begin.
I know. I honestly cannot believe this, because this started really on just a whim between you and I. This was just a, hey, thanks for having me on, the Disney list. Yep. And, I really enjoyed it. And you were like, hey, you should do a podcast. And I'm like, hey, if I did a podcast, I'd do it with you. And you were like, hey, if you're serious, I'll do a podcast. I'm like, okay, whatever. Let's do a podcast. We were all in lockdown for the pandemic back in August of 2020.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe how time flies. I feel we've been blipped. If we look back at the pandemic and everything that went on. I mean, the one thing I will say, there are two things that were great that happened during that time. First of all, my kids, because I adopted two kids.
Right.
And the next thing is your podcast. I mean, holy smokes, I can't believe it. And it just kind of blossomed into, you're great friends, Dave, even though we've only met, that one time really. And,
and you really are the one that remember that.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember it. I mean, it's like when I met Lisa Loeb. I told you I met Lisa Loeb last week for her show. It's like, what I didn't tell her is that we met 10 years ago, but she'll never remember that.
There you go.
And yes, because we met, and then of course, just I feel like you're a great friend and just an awesome person. And thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to podcast with you and help you with this show, because it's awesome.
Well, back at you, because you are the wizard behind the curtain for this podcast, and really are. And I think, we just have fun every week. We're getting great feedback from our listeners all over the world, which is fantastic. But, I do say, this is a homegrown operation. So occasionally we mess it up. And last week we put up Mark Kausler's part 4. And this week we're putting up part 3. So, hey, live with it. You know what I mean? You're going to enjoy it either way. Okay. You're going to enjoy it. But we've got Mark Kausler. The last portion of our interview with him is dropping today. So and by the way, I traded some emails with Mark, and he was thrilled that, his last interview was on our 200th podcast.
Yeah, how about that?
Which is amazing.
How about that? Mark is such a great individual and chock full of stories. What a great guy. So happy to have him along for show 200. I can't believe it.
And something I would say to our listeners, Aljon and I have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we've never really spent time together in the same room in person. Mm-hmm. Aljon's in Nashville. I'm in Los Angeles while we do these podcasts. And occasionally I'm on the road someplace, but most of the time I'm in Los Angeles when we do this. Right. But I'm going to tell you all something that I want you to mark your calendars, because I am going to Nashville.
What?
Yes, I am coming to Nashville in February of 2025. And that's going to be here before we know it, folks. February 21st to the 23rd, there's going to be an animation expo. It's called Animation Y'all Expo at Lipscomb University. And it's being organized by our friends Tony and Tom Bancroft, or as I like to say, my brothers from another mother.
That's right.
They are putting together an expo in the center of the country, essentially.
Unbelievable.
And as soon as I heard about it, John, I said, well, this is it. We're coming to Nashville in February. I've already put it on the calendar. We're making arrangements.
Yes.
We're going to be at that expo, and you and I are going to broadcast live. Now, I'm telling you that on the air here, and I haven't even talked to anybody yet, but we're going to be there. The Skull Rock podcast is going to have a presence.
Yes.
And I'm going to be signing books at the expo, and we're going to have a ball.
It's going to be amazing, Dave, and I can't wait to cover this event. The Bancroft brothers, of course, I've interviewed them just like here over time on Skull Rock and other podcasts, and they're just amazing guys. By the way, they're celebrating the Twin Expo. Did you see their post on the Twin Expo?
No, I did not see that, but I have no doubt about it because those guys are both twins. And I always bust their chops when I see them because I call Tony Tom and Tom Tony.
Yeah, and I think Tom I think Tom has got twin girls. So it's like so it's like twinning, and they're going to be twinning with this expo. I'm just so glad it's finally like something like this is happening in my backyard. And so and I'm sure we'll get people excited about it. And I'm looking at you, animation community, Disney podcast community. Come to Nashville, cover this event, promote these great animators that have, really shaped our lives and support this expo. I think this is going to be great. And Dave of course, will be there with the books, and it's going to be awesome.
And I got to say, I want to mention this. It's Animation Y'all. So it's animationyall.com, and you can find out all about this expo there. And this is going to be the first one they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling this is going to turn into a huge expo.
I do too.
Not only because the Bancroft brothers are organizing it, but because, as we've talked about on our podcast, John, there is an animation mafia in Tennessee.
Yeah, there certainly
There's
is.
some great people in Tennessee. We've got an upcoming interview with Dave Molina and Terry Shakespeare of Creative Capers.
Yes.
They've got a studio in Tennessee.
Yep.
You've got John Pomeroy, who's got the Pomeroy Animation Academy. He's in Tennessee. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of other folks that are connected to animation that are living in Tennessee. So you got all that great talent there. And then Tennessee, Nashville's not far from Chicago. It's not far from DC. It's not far from Atlanta. Yeah. I think that this is going to become a magnet in the central part of the country to bring the whole animation community together, whether people are students and they're interested in getting into animation or they're seasoned professionals. I think this is going to become an annual, let's go to Nashville and get together.
I think it's going to be great, and I couldn't think of a better crew to be heading this up than the Bancroft brothers, and they have a successful podcast. They've got tremendous reach, and of course, they've got the personalities, and they've been working on really building the film and animation community here in Middle Tennessee, and the program at Lipscomb that they've been working on is incredible.
Absolutely, without a question. Tom the Bomb and Tony No Baloney. The two Bancroft brothers, they are the best.
Absolutely, I love it. It's animation.
So anyway, when I first heard about this, and it was only a couple of days ago, I just said, "We're going. This is it. We are going to this. I want to support Tony and Tom, and we're going to hightail it to Nashville in February. And then, John, you and I are going to be like in person together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say for the first time.
Yes, for the first time.
Because that 5-minute interview you did with me, like 10, 12 years ago at D23, that just doesn't count. Okay. All right.
I wish I was looking through, the audio to try to find that interview. I'm going to have to go in and find it. But yes. I can't believe it. It's real. It's actually going to take place, gang. And I'm so happy. I'm hoping that a lot of our listeners happen to make the trip to see this awesome kickoff event. So it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to it. But
I am too.
Show 200, Dave. Before we get into the meat potatoes of this, over the course of 200 episodes, we've had so many great guests and so many awesome moments in the show that now people can relive, not only on our podcast vault, the audio vault over there at Spotify or wherever you get podcasts, but also now on YouTube. And people are now finding YouTube. And I think to celebrate 200 episodes, you've got something special you want to announce, right?
Well, yeah. So we talked about this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give 5 copies of my new book away. Whoa. 5 copies. Now, normally we would say it could only be in the U.S. because the postage will just break the bank if we ship around the world, right? But my new book, Find Your Happy Place, the 8-Step Guide to Boosting Your Creativity Through a Personal Retreat, is not only available as a print edition, there's an ebook edition, and there's going to be an audiobook edition. So we're going to give away 5 copies. I don't care where you are in the world. If you are outside the U.S., you're going to have a choice of the ebook or the audiobook. Okay. If you're in the U.S., we're going to send you a print edition of the book. Okay. And Aljon, I'm going to leave it up to you, since you are the wizard of this podcast, to make the selection. But how are we gonna select, and what's the pool of names that we're going to select from? Because we want our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got this raffle program that we can put everybody in. So if you're subscribed, great. Just click the link to go ahead and subscribe to our social feeds for more chances to win. And I'll put it in a randomizer and we'll pick our 5 winners.
There you go. So that's going to be like over this week and next week. So for 2 weeks, all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and then you're automatically entered to win an autographed copy. It's going to be signed and numbered, by the way, signed and numbered copy of the book, unless, of course, you get the ebook edition or the audiobook. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would say for 2 weeks, we're going to leave it open, and then we close it. I think it's going to close on the weekend of the 17th.
Sure.
Okay.
That works.
So August 17th, we're going to close the contest. Everybody who has subscribed to the YouTube channel, Aljon's going to put all the names into the randomizer.
Yep.
And 5 names will pop out, and we'll announce those on air on our following show after the 17th. So that would be the show on the 19th. Mm-hmm. We'll announce our winners.
Yep.
And then that's it.
Yep.
We'll figure out how we get the books to you.
Yep. I'll just reach out via YouTube. I mean, I've got all the YouTube subscribers' names here, and we'll just reach out to you. And if you're interested in additional ways to win, if you want to follow us on Instagram and all this other stuff, I'll make it a point to go ahead and have extra chances for you to win as well. I can make this happen, Dave. It's not a big deal. We'll make it happen.
I'm leaving it up to you because I have no clue how to do it.
No problem. I got your back. And
all I can do is get them the books.
Yeah, no problem. Subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube, our Facebook, Instagram, X account, what have you. We'll give you extra chances to win, and we'll draw that winner and announce it here in 2 weeks. So looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. So having said that, we do have
Skull Rock Podcast answers your email.
emails and comments coming to us from YouTube. This is at Portanuki. Says, wonderful to see you on YouTube. Love the show, and it's an absolute pleasure discovering all your past episodes. Paul. Thank you,
Awesome.
Paul. Yeah, we appreciate that. And it's just amazing that you are subscribed like so many others. We have this other comment here, and this comes to us from Dustin Vanderberg 2375, who happens to mention the back episode about Gunny Napper, Ernie, over at Disneyland.
Oh, Naper.
Naper,
yeah.
Yes.
Gunny Naper.
Master Sergeant Gunny had been doing the flag retreat at Disneyland for many, many years, and now does it over at Walt's Barn on occasion.
Yep.
And
Every month. He does it. Yeah, the third Sunday of every month, Walt's Barn.
Well, Gunny is a tremendous individual and a former guest of the show. And Dustin says, thank you, Ernie. And it's our highlighted comment there. And we're always happy to give Gunny our flowers. Absolutely. Just really good stuff. And once again, feel free to send us those notes, emails, what have you, comments on YouTube, and then we'll check those comments out in a future episode of Skull Rock Podcast. Yeah, I think I've got. And now it's time for our picks of the week, Dave, as we run the reel. What have you been checking out this week?
Well, Aljon, I always go to the movies. I mean, I can't help myself. I just love the movies, and I love going to the movie theater. And it's always just an enjoyable experience for me most of the time. My local multiplex, by the way, is finally investing in refurbishing the place, and I think they're starting to realize that if they create a good customer experience, that maybe they'll start filling more seats. So they're upgrading a lot of the stuff at my local multiplex. So I went to see Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Whoa. Okay.
And this is the adventurous Harold can make anything come to life simply by drawing it. After he grows up and draws himself off the book's pages and into the physical world, he soon learns his trusty crayon can set off more hilarious hijinks than he thought possible. However, when the power of unlimited imagination falls into the wrong hands, it will take all his creativity to save both the real world and his own. Zachary Levi stars as Harold, Zoe Deschanel as Terry, and Lil Real Howery, the rapper,
yes,
plays Moose. But I think the guy that steals the show is Jermaine Clement, who plays Gary the librarian.
Wow. Okay.
And you may know him from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
And he's a New Zealand actor and comedian. He was in Flight of the Condors, and he's been in a whole bunch of stuff. He's a hilarious actor.
Yes.
He's fabulous in this movie. I will say, though, look, I enjoyed this film. It's a great family film. This is a G-rated family movie. And I would say that it is really sort of like a TV movie. You can watch this when it comes on a streaming service.
Yeah.
And also, Zachary Levi is almost starting to become a one-trick pony in the characters he's playing. The kid as a grown-up.
Yeah, he's getting typecast. Well,
same as Shazam.
Yes.
So, but it was enjoyable. I liked it. I thought it was a reasonable movie, but like I said, you can go see it on when it comes on a streaming service. I don't think you necessarily have to go to a movie theater to see this. Now, a film that I would have loved to have seen on the big screen, but I watched on the Sundance Channel, was The Outlaw Josie Wells.
Okay.
And I rewatched this. I've probably have seen this movie like 15 times, but I can't help myself. This is from 1976. This is Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
A classic Clint Eastwood film. Josie Wales watches helplessly as his wife and child are murdered by Union men led by Captain Terrell. Seeking revenge, Welles joins the Confederate Army. He refuses to surrender when the war ends, but his fellow soldiers go to hand over their weapons and are massacred by Terrell. Wells guns down some of Terrell's men and flees to Texas, where he tries to make a new life for himself. But the bounty on his head endangers him and his new surrogate family. This is such a classic Clint Eastwood Western. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would just recommend people, if you like Westerns, if you haven't seen The Outlaw Josie Wales with Clint Eastwood, check it out. I'm sure you can get it on one of the streaming services. Oh, yes. May have to rent it or something, but it was just terrific to rewatch it. Now, I did watch a series, a limited series. It's one season. It's called Grace Point on Prime. And this is a really, I thought, a wonderful sort of whodunit murder mystery. Tragedy strikes Grace Point, a town in Northern California, where when a young boy is found dead on a beach. When authorities quickly declare the death a homicide, the town's residents turn against one another and a media frenzy erupts. Detective Emmett Carver, a by-the-book cop, is brought in to fill a high position in Grace Point's police force and lead the investigation. Detective Ellie Miller, who had been promised Carver's position, must set aside her resentment about that and research the case with her new boss. This is an adaptation of a British show called Broadchurch, which starred David Tennant, and David Tennant stars in this as Detective Emmett Carver. Anna Gunn stars as Detective Ellie Miller. And there's a really great cast. You got Nick Nolte in this, Michael Pena, Jackie Weaver. There's just a really terrific cast. It twists and turns, and I tell you, they lead you down a path. You think you know who did it, and it turns out to be somebody you had no clue. You thought that would never happen, and it turns out to be the person who did it. So, and you don't find out until like the last episode. So it's really terrific. Very well done, beautifully shot. David Tennant is a great British actor who's playing an American detective. So you can't even detect that he's got a British accent. He's got a great American voice, and I really enjoyed it. Grace Point on Prime. Now, I did watch one episode of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder on Netflix.
Okay.
And this just dropped. This is brand new. Emma Myers stars as Pip. And Pip, a brilliant woman, is unsure whether schoolgirl Andy Bell was killed by her lover, Sal Singh, 5 years ago. They must see how far they will go to protect Pip from learning the truth if Sal Singh turns out not to be the murderer. So this is, again, another murder mystery. And the first episode drew me in, so I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. And then finally, I continued to watch Maine Cabin Masters, which is a reality-based show on Hulu. Yes. And it's wonderful what they're able to do with these dilapidated camps and cabins in the woods of Maine. And I mean, the transformation of some of these places is just unbelievable. So check it out, Maine Cabin Masters on Hulu. Aljon, what have you been watching?
Well, Dave, the wife and I finally went to see Deadpool and Wolverine.
And?
Loved it.
Yes. It's hilarious, isn't it?
The humor, the violence, of course, the action scenes, the sense of humor. It's well acted. It's well, the cinematography, the fighting scenes were next level for a comic book fan, especially of Marvel Comics, to see Wolverine and Deadpool and the remaining cast of characters live out their comic book best in under 2 hours is such a great thing to watch. It really is. And so this romp, this crazy buddy movie is how I liken it to. It's just you have the crazy off the chain hero wanting to make a difference, meeting up with the reluctant hero who's down on his luck. They answer the call finally. They take on this existential threat, seemingly unbeatable, meet up with a bunch of misfits along the way, and of course they goonie their way through the film with a bunch of just raucous, crazy fight scenes, and the cameo scenes are next level. I especially appreciated the fact that there was a little bit of a shout out to Stan Lee in the film.
Yes.
So there's a little spoiler there, but I will say now this is spoiler territory. I was so happy to see Johnny Storm, aka Chris Evans, return as his Fantastic Four counterpart back in the Fox universe, back in when Fox did the Fantastic Four almost 20 years ago. To see Chris Evans come back as a foul-mouthed version of Johnny Storm makes sense.
Yeah, that one monologue, I practically fell out of my chair laughing.
Oh, it was insane, especially that the post-credit scene was just like, gotcha. You did say all these things. I didn't get Johnny killed. Johnny would have got himself killed. That's whatever. And seeing Jennifer Garner as Elektra, Wesley Snipes as Blade, the quips that go back and forth about how Ryan Reynolds, of course, was in Blade Trinity, and how Wesley Snipes reportedly there was a falling out, but they had since made up apparently. Jennifer Garner's Elektra, who basically said, yeah, Daredevil's dead. And they even made fun of Hugh Jackman's divorce. I mean, he mentioned the divorce. I mean, literally the Hugh Jackman's real life divorce from his longtime wife, the ink hasn't even dried on the divorce papers, and they mention it.
Wow.
Leslie Uggams as Blind Al is hilarious. Leslie Uggams, we grew up watching Leslie Uggams in the 70s and 80s, and then here she is as Blind Al, this, basically the roommate for Deadpool. Do you want to build a snowman? Of course he wants to build a snowman, but it's Disney. And the de-aged Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, trying to be the gatekeeper for the Avengers as Ryan Reynolds Deadpool tries to apply to become an Avenger. Wow, they made John look really nice and young. So there's a bunch of great cameo scenes here, a really nice love letter to the fans, and the MacGuffin of it all. Yes, we make fun of it. It's fun and it's irreverent, and it is Deadpool exactly the way it should be. And I have to also give a shout out to Emma Corrin, who plays Cassandra Nova. I think she's great. I don't think this is the last we've seen of this, this character. Seemingly she's all powerful, but for whatever reason, they were able to overcome all the odds with friendship. Which is the cheesiest thing ever. But of course, it's Ryan Reynolds. And since Ryan Reynolds helped pen the script, and of course, with the help of Sean Levy, the director, who did a brilliant job, by the way. I look at these directors at Marvel Films and how they're able to work, with this creative vision. They didn't lose track of the creative vision of Ryan Reynolds. They had a director with Sean Levy who was able to take all of that stuff that they're trying to put into the film and make it a great film. I feel this is done the same thing, in this kind of irreverent humor was something that James Gunn did in Guardians of the Galaxy, as basically that the franchise showrunner of the Guardians of the Galaxy films and projects. And I think it really makes a difference if you have the right chemistry with the right director, like Joe and Anthony Russo, or someone like now that he's left, of course, James Gunn, now, you have to fill that void. Even Taika Waititi, you just have to be able to have a vision and make sure it fits within Kevin Feige's plan. And they're changing the course of Marvel. We're going to see that happen over the next couple years. And with the announcements of their new slate, and they're going to be making more announcements at D23, there's no doubt. I can't wait for the new Marvel films. So Deadpool and Wolverine.
The one thing I would say is that, when The Godfather made so much money and won all those Academy Awards and everything, somebody quipped that, every movie in Hollywood's going to try and figure out how to put a dead horse head in their movie, and I just think that, with Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine doing so well. I mean, it had a banner second week.
Yeah.
I think it's going to do like another $100 million or something in its second week, or more. And what's crazy about that is that I hope that they're not going to say, "Oh, let's just put in F-bombs and everything in all these movies because poke fun out of it." I hope they don't start to fall into that trap of a formula. You know what I mean? I just hope they don't.
I don't think they will, because I think Deadpool is a very special character. And while they may have another rated R Marvel film, and I hope they do, I think it's going to be different tone. And, that's where something like Blade, which I understand that they finally removed Blade from the film slate moving forward, because where are they going to put it? They're having to scale back to 2 films a year. But I think this is a special kind of film. It's very much like Kick-Ass to me in terms of,
again, my feeling is that, they tend to try and be formulaic.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want to just grind out as much money as possible. And I just hope that, they look at this as a standalone. And maybe I would love to see these two again in a sequel. However they want to do that. I don't know if they will, or if they're going to show up someplace. They're absolutely hilarious together. They've got great chemistry.
I think this is the lethal weapon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You look at buddy films.
Yeah.
And I think this is the lethal weapon of this universe. And I would love to see them back again to do another film, because I think they've established them as buddies. Good. And so it just makes sense. But anyway, regardless, I love it. I also, because I was talking to you before we rolled about how good the opening credit scene was for Deadpool and Wolverine with the NSYNC. They just happened to have a brand new documentary series. It's a mini series. It's a 3-parter called Dirty Pop. And this series is about all of the boy bands that were signed during the early 2000s, Dave. I mean, the guy behind it, Lou Pearlman, was, and this is the topic of it, Dirty Pop, the band scam on Netflix. And I've seen the Dirty Pop, I think it was called Dirty Pop, or not Dirty Pop, but there was a boy band scam that was a miniseries pre-pandemic on YouTube. I thought it was fascinating, but this is literally the story of the crimes that Lou did with this Ponzi scam. He would get investors in, and he did this for his blimp company. He did this for the other companies that he did, and did a Ponzi scam, got a bunch of investors, and created a hit factory where NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, O-Town, and so many others were basically churning out all these boy bands. And he was a genius at doing this formula. I mean, he wasn't the first to do it, but he basically was taking that formula and cloning it. And he took all these people for a ride. The bands didn't know that he signed up to be the 6th member of the band and got paid all this money, and basically frauded all of these investors, and they never made a single cent. And of course, he was convicted of his crimes and passed away, and these people still don't have the money. And I can imagine, the reason why you haven't really seen an NSYNC reunion is probably because of the whole legal ramifications of where this money is going to go, or whatever, trying to pay all these people back, and on the backs of all this band hard work. It's like no one wins in this. But I will say, Dave, this is the first documentary I've seen that they used AI to replicate old footage of Lou Pearlman and his voice. They actually used a voice actor to double his voice, and they used AI, so it was narrated scarily by him. So that they basically have footage of him that they took from old VHS tape interviews and used AI to have him speak the words that were in a book, in a memoir or notes, and would narrate this in his own voice. It was really strange, Dave. If you didn't know any better, you would think that was him that was doing it. But of course, in the credits, it says AI, Lou Pearlman's voice is this and this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So,
and he's dead, right?
Oh yeah, he's dead. He died, I think, prior to the pandemic. If I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't he Cyndi Lauper's manager? Or not?
I don't think so. But
no,
I mean,
okay. I might be wrong on that.
I think Cyndi Lauper's manager was
different person.
I think. Lou Pearlman is I think much younger. Than Cyndi, I think, or maybe they may be the same age, but he managed. Britney Spears was tied to him at one point. A lot of those bands that came out during the 2000s.
Yeah,
but it's I would say this documentary is fair to Midland. It is really sad because of the stuff that happened to all these people that were affected, and the boy bands too. But ultimately, I think they could have been a tighter narrative. And the use of AI, I think, was really kind of creepy in a way. So, but anyway, it does share some new light onto the boy band scam that happened and the artists that were taken for a ride. So, Dirty Pop, you can find that on Netflix. Okay, what if you've been watching? Let us know, and we'll check it out in a future episode and give us our reviews, and we'll see what's going on.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
All right, Dave. On a smash run. Box office Deadpool and Wolverine heads for record smashing $195 million to $205, opening after massive $96 million on Friday. Those numbers are completely, what's the word I'm looking for? They're smashed now. So I got to get an update, but Dave, this movie is on a tear.
It really is. Yeah.
I was going to say that the latest headline for Deadpool and Wolverine, Dave, is that it has 116 F-bombs.
I believe it. I would almost say that seems low.
It does seem low. It's crazy to see what's going on here. So here we are. This is from yesterday's charts here at The Hollywood Reporter. Twisters approaches 200 million. M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, which I have to see, placed third with 15 to 16 million. Harold and the Purple Crayon crumbles in its domestic debut. As of course, you mentioned, it's still a decent family film, but of course it continues. Deadpool and Wolverine enjoying $94 million plus this week. Of course, it's earned, what is it, 318.5 million right now, or no, I'm sorry.
Well, that might be the domestic number.
It's north of 390 million right now.
Domestically. But worldwide, it's got to be approaching 700 or more.
Yes, it says worldwide total 734.5 million.
Yeah, and that's in 2 weeks. I mean, come on. You know what? Another week or two, this is going to be, they're going to be talking about it crossing $1 billion.
Yeah, I would say, by the time this month ends, it's going to be $1 billion film. And,
hey, you know what? It's done so well. It did give the Disney stock a little bit of a boost before Friday's rout.
You think? And of course that was important. This is basically setting the tone and tenor for the Marvel MCU moving forward. Hey, look. Kathleen Kennedy, take note. This is how a franchise is redeemed. Okay. All you have to do is put Luke Skywalker in a time machine, fix all your problems, and have a multiverse, and then you fix everything. And then you can have Daisy Ridley, because we love Daisy Ridley. We love the new characters, but give them but just jettison the people that don't know how to write Star Wars, please. And
by the way, speaking of Star Wars, what I love about the movies is that you can change the rules. You can make up things.
Well, they certainly
you can bring dead characters back to life.
You know what? It's comic books, first of all.
Yes.
Comic books and science fiction, anything happens, I can tell you a story about how Dave Filoni made a back entrance for old characters to come into new situations called The World Between Worlds. He put it in Ahsoka. He put it in his animated shows. So there is a way to make that happen, to get these characters all inhabiting the same universe, but it's fine. It's whatever. It's all very Doctor Who and Back to the Future. So I'm going to leave the timey-wimey stuff alone. I will just simply say the proof is in the box office. $800 million coming to $1 billion at the end of this month. Deadpool and Wolverine, proof that Kevin Feige and the rest of Marvel Studios is taking the time to right the wrongs and help create what will be, in 2 years, the most epic film we've ever seen, with Robert Downey Jr. and Doomsday and Secret Wars. I can't wait, Dave.
And the other thing too, Aljon, the problem has always been that when you start to have a big franchise that's making money, everybody wants to accelerator and start grinding it out as fast as you can. I always go back to when they had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the air with Regis Philbin as the host. It was a huge hit on television. And what did they do? Oh, let's put it on 5 nights a week. And they just killed it. Absolutely killed the show. It disappeared, right? So don't do that. Don't press the accelerator. Leave the audience wanting more. Yeah. Okay, because that's what you're going to have with when you put out 1 or 2 films a year. You're going to have these huge box office, and you're also taking the care to make a great movie.
Too much of a good thing. It can happen, and that's what they tried doing during the pandemic. They doubled down on content. The content sucked because you can't have quality controls when you're churning out project after project after project. It just is not going to happen.
Right.
But they're doing it now, so congratulations to them. Do you plan to see the Joker at all, the new Joker movie, Dave?
I saw the latest trailer with Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, and it looks really good.
I'm intrigued. I like both of those actors a lot.
Yeah. I really like Lady Gaga on screen. I think she's a really terrific actress. I really do. I mean, look, she's a great singer, and not all great singers cross over into acting. She certainly has, and I think she's got a great presence, and she transforms into characters. I mean, the remake of A Star Is Born with Bradley Cooper. She was amazing.
Yeah, she really is. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on with that in the coming months. So looking forward to that. Hey, did you know, on side note regarding Deadpool, that Wesley Snipes' Blade character, big spoiler alert, now that the film's out, I don't feel bad about spoiling it, has broken 2 Guinness World Records, Dave?
No.
Now, so according to the world records, he beat out his co-star Hugh Jackman, returning to his character for 25 years and 240 days after he played the character in 1998's Blade.
Wow.
So he has been doing it the longest. So you look at that. So Jackman, while he had his outing in Wolverine's 2000's X-Men, he was expected to take the record from Sir Patrick Stewart for Charles Xavier with the release of Deadpool 3, but lost it to Snipes because, Sir Patrick Stewart had been playing Professor X for decades now.
Yeah.
And he had a long stint between his last X-Men movie and then his appearance in the Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange. Yeah. And now, of course, it's been trumped now by Wesley Snipes, the longest tenure of a single character. So I was glad to see it.
I have to say, Aljon, I was amazed when I saw Wesley Snipes in the movie, because I have not seen him on screen for, it's got to be a decade or more.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, he was one of the hottest actors in Hollywood, making film after film and basically, him taking a very Harrison Ford, action film route. And I loved Wesley Snipes. I thought he was an amazing actor, Always Bet on Black. I mean, he was just an amazing actor. And for whatever reason, he just kind of unplugged. And I'm not really sure of the reason, but I'm glad that he's back. And, the ovation and the love that the Comic-Con fans last week gave the cast of Deadpool, because they didn't have there was so much secrecy around the film. When the film finally was released last week, and they went to Comic-Con and brought the entire cast of characters out with all the cameo characters like Jennifer Garner and of course Wesley Snipes and Chris Evans and everybody, they just erupted and showed them so much love. Can you imagine being away from the scene for so long and then coming home to a hero's welcome at Comic-Con like that? I mean, that's got to be vindication for all these great actors.
I absolutely agree. And I thought Wesley Snipes looked terrific.
He did. He did look terrific.
I hope he's back in the saddle. I'd like to see him in more films.
I'd love to see him back as Blade, Dave.
That'd be great.
I'll be honest. I want to see him as Blade. And Mahershala Ali, I love that having Blade. I know that was removed from the film slate, supposedly, but
now, do you want to see him back as Blade as much as you'd like to see Danny Trejo back as Machete?
Honestly, I like them both. I want Machete. I want Blade. I want Katana. I want knives. I want everything, Dave. I tell you another thing I really appreciate, Dave, is we pivot to Tim Allen. Tim Allen has been one of the biggest TV stars in sitcom history, with Tool Time and the Home Improvement Show, and to his Last Man Standing that was on ABC, then went to Fox, and now they are pitting him once again to have Shifting Gears, a series ordered at ABC. This is amazing, Dave. I mean, I feel like Tim Allen is probably one of the most well-loved and well-liked celebrities. And of course, he means everything in the world of sitcoms. He brings ratings. Like, I feel like they could have gone another season or two of Last Man Standing. Oh,
absolutely, without question.
They ended it on such a high note for whatever reason. And I don't want to go into conspiracy theories, but here he is again, Tim Allen returning. And I think they've done a great job with having Tim Allen with the Santa Claus series on Disney Plus. I watch it every year and I look forward to it. It's fun. So Shifting Gears is going to be great. Apparently is moving ahead with a new showrunner, Mike Scully and Julie Thacker, who showrun for Simpsons and Duncanville. Great series. And there you go. Shifting Gears is a comedy starring Tim Allen as a widower and owner of a classic car shop with adult daughter Kat Dennings, who I love. I love Kat Dennings. And teenage kids move back with him. It makes a return, of course, for ABC's Tim Allen, who worked on Home Improvement and Last Man Standing. So, Dave, I think this is great. And they need to have a hit series on ABC.
Yeah, and something, Tim Allen's the guy that can deliver it. He's such a likable individual. He always when he does a sitcom, it's always a great sitcom. It really is. I mean, he's had hit after hit. And I have to tell you, Aljon, he's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. I had some dealings with him probably 15 years ago.
Okay.
He just was real terrific, great person. And so I think that comes through when he does a show, and I'm looking forward to Shifting Gears.
I am too. And I hope that's not the last we've seen of Tim Allen. I hope, if Disney and Pixar is planning another Toy Story franchise, I'm wanting it. Give it to me, because there is something about the chemistry between Tim Allen and Tom Hanks that I absolutely love. I love the fact that they're together, and bring them back together, guys. Bring them back. Bring the band back together. In our regrets for this week, I don't have the roll, Dave. I'm sorry, I don't have the sound effect.
Obituary roll call.
Okay, obituary roll call for this week. Daniel Selznick. The making Selznick, making of legend, of course, Gone with the Wind and Blood Feud producer, dies at 88. You may not know the name. I know that if you're
if you're into movies, you know the name Selznick.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, this Daniel Selznick is the son of David O. Selznick, legendary Hollywood producer.
Yes, his father produced Gone with the Wind and Duel of the Sun and King Kong back in the heyday. Yeah. And he just carried on the family tradition, doing the Kennedys and Reagan's Way and a bunch of different shows like The Man with the Perfect Wife. and so many other things. So he passes away with a great career at the age of 88. Wow. Yeah. And
I know. I mean, again, it's sort of, the last of a Hollywood dynasty,
Oh, certainly. So he doesn't have any other family members that are taking on the.
I don't know. I haven't heard of any other Selznicks in the business, but who knows?
Yeah, that's wild. The name is certainly synonymous with movies for sure.
Yeah.
So how about this career? Leonard Engelman, makeup artist on Rocky IV, Moonstruck, and many more, dies at the age of 83. Of course, coming to us from The Hollywood Reporter, this 2-time Emmy nominee also served as Cher's personal makeup artist for more than 30 years and was an invaluable Academy member. Makeup artists are an unsung hero in Hollywood, making our celebrities, the celebrities look their very best. And
or worst, depending on the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, for example, is a key
There
point
you
of
go.
that, but I mean, once again, this guy has done so much. Batman and Robin, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Cher's makeup, of course. I'm not putting Cher in there with Jim Carrey and the Grinch, but Engelman died Thursday, Northbridge Medical Center, with his wife of 42 years, artist Esther Engelman. And he's been in the film industry. His father apparently was also in the film industry with makeup as well.
His father was a makeup artist.
Yeah.
And had an amazing career. This guy, was Leonard Engelman, learned from his father and had this amazing career. And I think it's worth pointing out that, these types of artists, these craftspeople that are in the industry, you don't normally know their names, but boy, when you read their obituary and you hear about their careers, this guy was, learned from his father. He was a second generation makeup artist. And by the way, his daughter is a makeup artist. So there's 3 generations of makeup artists right there. And he worked on some great films, The Witches of Eastwick, Burlesque, of course, worked with Sylvester Stallone on Rambo, First Blood, Rocky IV, Cobra. He worked with Deborah Winger on Betrayed, Meg Ryan in Joe versus the Volcano. I mean, he just had a storied career with some great films under his belt, but he also worked on movies like The Black Stallion, Cat People, Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, Twins, Bonfires of the Vanities. I mean, I could go on and on. He did TV shows, Cagney and Lacey and The Shield. So what an incredible career, 83. Gosh. Leonard Engelman, makeup artist to some great films and TV shows.
It says here that he pioneered the use of silicone rather than rubber, which didn't absorb perspiration, for the appliances on Stallone's face in the, I guess, Rambo movies. So, that is an incredible piece of interesting career move there, because silicone we take for granted now because it's so lifelike and it allows the actors to breathe instead of sweat profusely on scenes and in set. So wow, what a great career. Anyway, that wraps up this portion of the show. Let's move on to our main event right now here on Skull Rock Podcast. Sit back and enjoy Mark Kausler for his next installment, episode 200.
The final installment of Mark Kausler's interview. All right.
Sit back and relax right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
This is Animator Ron Husband, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Support Skull Rock Podcast for as little as 99 cents per month. We'd like to thank Randall Lynch, Spencer Wright, Lindsay Scoffey, and Joshua Volker. Click the link in our show notes to help support Skull Rock Podcast and sustain future episodes.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we are back again with animation artist, story guy, animator, film collector, Mark Kausler. Mark, how are you? Welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Feeling pretty well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the audience is going crazy.
I just heard a dog. It sounded like a dog.
And I have to say, we left off with you finishing up on Fantasia 2000,
right?
And you said something very poignant. I thought you said I was at the end of my rope at Disney. Yep. It was time to go.
I was almost at the end of my rope, but it occurred to me the other day. I think they called me back to animate on Human again. You know, that little insert scene.
Yes. So that was the sequence they inserted for the 10th anniversary of Beauty and the Beast.
Right. Phil Young animated on that too. I think that might have been Phil's swan song as well in the animation bullpen. I'm not sure.
I think he retired not too long after that.
Right.
Yeah.
But Phil was a great guy. He loved to play the bagpipes, I remember. And he was one hell of an archer. He had this wonderful archery set with weights on it, and it was really high tech looking. All these special feathers on the arrows, and wow! I was very impressed by a lot of things he did.
So you did come back briefly. You worked on Human Again, the Human Again sequence, and then you left. And what were you doing? Sort of after you basically left Disney.
Well, I had a pretty good contact in Pat Ventura. We worked together on that little sequence that they didn't use for Pomp and Circumstance. As you may recall from my discussing last time, when the animators rebelled and said, "We're not going to make this."
that was the initial idea for Pomp and Circumstance in Fantasia 2000, which was the prince and princesses in procession with their babies,
with 7 little crowns on a big pillow, hauled around by Daisy Duck.
There you go.
That was a very strange sequence, but like I said, Roy Disney's wife really loved it. Yeah, and she cried.
Thank God it didn't get made.
But her tears were in vain because nobody made it. But that's okay. But anyway, Pat was already doing some freelancing for Hanna-Barbera. So right after that, I heard he landed a steady gig working on the What a Cartoon program, which was it Fred Seibert, who was president of Hanna-Barbera at the time, initiated. It was a program to get basically pilots made. They wanted a whole lot of new content, new characters, and they put a lot of very young directors and some older directors like Eddie Fitzgerald. And Eddie had a worm character that he wanted to do, and it was pretty funny. But Pat's stuff I thought was very funny, and I really liked his style. He did sort of a revival of George and Jr., Tex Avery's bear characters. And then he had his own little characters like Yucky Duck and Sledgehammer Opossum and all these different characters. And so I got to sneak a little animation into it. We were officially classified as layout because they shipped all the animation out to Phil Cartoons in Manila, which I think Hanna-Barbera had a big interest in. And so instead of just acquiescing and not animating, I would sneak down to editorial, and we found the grays, which are the dialogue, all broken down, read out on the sheets. So I just made my own sheets and transferred the grays information. And we actually animated some dialogue that way because Pat wanted to do some really weird looking squirrely mouth shapes. And we had this strange little device we called puppet mouths, which was just open and shut. But the open position had all kinds of jaggedy teeth, and the closed position had some very pearly looking lips. And we just animated between the two, just alternated. So we had a lot of fun just making fun of limited animation, making fun of Hanna-Barbera's old cliches, all the mouse systems and all the stuff they used to do. I'm sure most people didn't even notice it. One guy made a cogent comment about Pat's style. He said, everybody else looks like they're trying to imitate Iwu Takamoto or Ed Benedict. But Pat's stuff looks like it was squeezed out of a bar rag. That was pretty funny.
It's a great comment.
But so I worked on that for quite a while. more than a year. I think I was on the What a Cartoon program.
Was that sort of the tail end of Hanna-Barbera as we knew it?
Well, I think they persisted a little bit beyond that. I think they had somebody after Fred Seibert, who was the president. Bill and Joe were still at the studio, but they just liked to hang around. I guess they had nothing better to do.
Yeah.
So they just hung out at the studio all the time. But I think after Fred left, somebody else helmed it, but I was gone from there by then too. So I don't know really how they met their actual conclusion. But I remember they revived Johnny Quest in a sort of was it Johnny Quest 2000 or something like that? And they redesigned him and made him not as cartoonist friendly. He got rather angular looking and kind of jaggedy. I'm glad I didn't have to work on that one. But it was a pretty tough style to get used to. I like Pat's style because it was a rounder and the line quality was nice that he figured out on his characters. I enjoyed drawing them.
He really has a great style. Where is he? Do you keep in touch with him?
It's an absolute mystery. I don't know what happened to him.
Okay.
He hit a bad spot in his career. I don't think he could get any more jobs. He wanted to get jobs directing and he couldn't get any.
Yeah.
I have no idea what happened, Dave.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I would like to find out, but I don't know.
If one of our listeners knows, please reach out to us. Send us an email.
It'd be nice to hear. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I haven't seen him in several years now. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, after that, I worked on a picture called Osmosis Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Which Tom Cito and a guy named Pete Kroon directed at Warner's. That wasn't too far from the Hanna-Barbera studio. And we worked in the old Hanna-Barbera building, by the way. Yeah, before they closed it.
Yeah, and the building right off the freeway, right
on Cahuenga.
On Cahuenga,
yeah. It was we thought it as the sick building syndrome because I caught 6 colds in a row when I worked there. The air conditioning was so antiquated that we were all breathing each other's germs. It was pretty.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to have been the ventilation system that's usually the culprit.
Oh yeah, but then I worked on Osmosis Jones, and that was in a little office building in deepest Burbank, I think. I can't remember exactly where it was now. I used to tried to take the bus out there. It was I just wanted to see what public transportation would be like, and it was abysmal.
Oh, it's
it was miserable.
Yeah,
taking public transit.
It took you 2 hours to do what you would spend 20 minutes in a car.
Yeah, darn it! But I was just hoping maybe I wouldn't have to drive all the way out there. But it didn't work out so well. But at any rate, I eventually succumbed and started driving again. But it was an interesting picture in that it was sort of like Fantastic Voyage, if you remember that old movie where these people are miniaturized and injected in a guy's bloodstream to clear an obstruction. I think to his brain. I can't remember exactly what the plot was, but Osmosis Jones was a cartoon takeoff on that. It featured all sorts of cells and antibodies and all kinds of bacteria characters. And I did a lot of experimental animation. I did a little dog bacterium who had no legs, and he just kind of bounced back and forth, but he had a little kind of a doggy head, and he barked, and he was on a leash that sort of looked like the tail end of a protozoa. It was very odd, unusual design, different ways of thinking, but boy, the story process on that picture, holy cow. I mean, management kept changing it and changing it and changing it. And the guy who was the story supervisor, I can't remember his name today, but he had this. A lot of people drew caricatures of him as a captain on a slave ship, and he was had a big whip in hand. And he was whipping all the story guys. Okay, faster, get it done, quick, guys. So that went on and on. We thought the story was locked, and then it wasn't locked. And then they put Bill Murray in the picture. And Bill Murray, I don't know how much he brought to it. I didn't think he was too funny, but it turned out to be a very strange movie. But where they did really well was the Saturday morning version of it. For some reason, the Saturday morning version took off, where the feature film did not. And I think Warner's made a little bit of money on that.
So I just so our listeners know, Osmosis Jones was mixing live action and animation. The film follows the misadventures of a zoo worker with an unknown malady he contracted after eating an egg contaminated with simian saliva.
I forgot about that.
The responsibility of eradicating this lethal virus falls to a white blood cell cop and a fuzzy cold cure pill. And directors Bobby Farley, Peter Farley, the Farley brothers.
Farley brothers, yeah.
Obviously did the live action, and Tom Cito and Pete Kroon
They were the animation
and that was done by Warner Brothers Animation. And it is a very good voice cast. I mean, Bill Murray, Chris Rock, Lawrence Fishburne, David Hyde Pierce, Chris Elliott, William Shatner, Brandy, Ron Howard, Kid Rock. I mean,
William Shatner was pretty funny in it. He did a pretty good job. Chris Rock evidently had a difficult time doing retakes. It was hard to get him to do more of a nuanced take on something. When he did a line, he considered that to be it.
Oh boy.
He didn't want to keep going back over it again and again. Yeah. He was pretty tough about that.
Yeah.
But there were yes.
Did anyone want to smack him or anything like that? Smack him around?
No, I don't think so. I didn't really want to smack him. Better not. But what was I going to say about that?
You know, it's funny. I worked on a project. I'm not going to mention what it was.
Okay.
But there was a 10 or 12-year-old kid, you know, a young man, and he was like that. He did the line once or twice, and then he said, "I think you got it." You know, and it was a kid. It was a kid in the booth. You're sitting there going, "What?"
And on Osmosis Jones, we had one key animator whose name I can't remember, who actually set up a cot. He said, "I know this picture is going to be a long, hard slog," because he says they keep changing the ideas all the time. I'm going to have to redo stuff a lot. I'm going to have to live here. So he brought in a hot plate and a cot, and he practically lived at the studio most of the time.
That's crazy.
And several of the other animators too tried to do that, but then they got kind of discouraged. It was a difficult picture to work on. It's very, very hard to get next to it. For me, it was.
Yeah. Well, with those kinds of changes are demoralizing, I think, to people who are trying to do the work, because you've worked on something that gets changed and gets tossed out.
Right. It happened over and over again. And then the next picture I did after Osmosis was Looney Tunes Back in Action. I think that's the order that we did them in. And that was directed by, the animation was directed by Eric Goldberg, and Joe Dante did the live action on that. And it was basically a catalog of everybody's favorite gags, like Area 52 and Brendan Fraser. Long before he did the whale, was the male lead in that picture.
What, wasn't Eric Goldberg working at Disney at the time?
No, that was on one of his hiatuses from Disney.
So he had left Disney to do that.
Yeah, he worked that picture pretty much all the way through. What was really fun about that movie was we started it on the Warner lot in the old art department.
Wow.
Was that fun working up there? I made a lot of new friends.
Over by Termite Terrace, isn't it?
Well, not really. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of the lot. It's not too far from the front gate on Barham Boulevard. You know?
Yeah.
Not too far from there. And it's way upstairs. You go up this long flight of steps and it's at the top. And so at first, I felt so flattered because they kept coming to me for character models. I was doing all these strange character models, like the guy from Super Rabbit, the Western character in that. They needed a model sheet on him, so I just drew one up for them. And there were a lot of incidental characters where the model sheets either never existed or they had vanished. In the subsequent years they were done.
Yeah.
So I got to stick around and do as many models as I could. And then they put me in story sketch, of course. And we story sketched. I remember one sequence, Daffy Duck runs the gauntlet and he has to run through this obstacle course of poison darts and adders jumping out of the foliage and trying to bite him and doing all that. God, we must have worked that sequence. We must have redone it 20 times. It was really, really full of stuff, and most of which they didn't have the screen time to really do. And the sets for that, Dave, were unbelievable. I mean, I would go on the main lot and they had built these elaborate sets of the jungle for the live action stuff. And it was really something to see. And a very glamorous lady whose name I can't remember now did a striptease in the Western bar sequence. And it was kind of funny the way she did the striptease. She came out from behind the bar and there were these grappling hooks kind of that just tore the costume right off of her, stage right and stage left, rip. And she jumped right out. And she was really funny. She was a pretty good vocalist too. I can't remember her name today either. But I saw that being photographed and really enjoyed that. So
was that Brandy?
That doesn't sound right.
No?
I mean, that might have been the name of the character she played, but...
Well, it's the actress, Brandy, or the singer Brandy. She was playing a character called Leah.
No, that's not it. This one is older. She's an older star than Brandy.
Oh,
Heather
Molly
Locklear?
Shannon.
Heather Locklear.
No. Heather Locklear, you got it.
It was
Very good, Al.
Heather Locklear.
Yeah,
Okay.
we watched Heather Locklear being stripped.
Dusty Tales.
Grappling hooks.
Dusty Tales is her character.
Wow.
Right. Yep, that was her. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Brandy was in Osmosis Jones, not in the Looney
Not
Tunes.
in Looney Tunes back in action. Okay, well that figures.
Yeah.
But so I found a lot of fun stuff to do. I worked on the art gallery sequence where the characters all visit the Louvre. I told you that this picture is a big hodgepodge. They go from here to there. They're trying to find this amulet, this gold amulet, and they go all over the world. That's the MacGuffin, you know. They got to find this gold amulet, and it had a red ruby in the middle of it. I remember, but the art gallery sequence was fun because we had all these paintings come to life, like a Seurat came to life, and Mondrian and Seurat with all the dots, you know. And at the end of that sequence, Daffy was completely in pieces. So it made like a Seurat painting in it, but instead of pointillism, he connected the dots on his body, one dot to the next. And that was the concluding gag. That's the way that sequence wound up. Eric really enjoyed that one a lot. He got a big kick out of that sequence.
Did Eric do any animation at all?
Yes, he sure did. He did like Toulouse-Lautrec. He did some of the dancers in the nightclub where Lautrec worked at the table, you know.
Yeah.
He did a beautiful job on Bugs Bunny and some of the other characters wearing these big flouncy dresses, you know. So, he had a ball on that part. But it was a tough slog again because, once again, like in Osmosis Jones, management couldn't make up their mind what they thought should be included in the story and what shouldn't be. So we started a lot of sequences that got the axe, and a lot of scenes that were completed, you know, got chopped out or had to be redone. It just went over and over and around like that. But they finally finished it.
Let me ask you this. I mean, because you did several pictures over at Warner Brothers, what do you think the problem is with Warner Brothers, with their start and stop of doing animation, not doing animation, shutting their animation department down, restarting it? I mean,
like that recent Coyote picture.
Do you think it's just the fact that there were so many changes in management that it was just whipsawed one way into the other? Where whoever the manager was or whoever was running the studios, we're doing animation, or no, we're not doing animation.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure a lot of it was kind of like that. But management didn't really change that much when we were working on those two pictures. It's just that the current management kept changing their minds.
Yeah.
That's what they changed most. And we had a hard time keeping up with it.
It's really a shame because they've got such a storied animation department, and a lot of history going back to the 1930s, and they've got a great cast of characters, and they don't seem to really have any continuity to a plan.
Right. And Larry Doyle, who was the head writer on the picture, kind of had a cockeyed sense of humor. He didn't have a friendly sense of humor. He
really
had kind of an evil sense of humor. Jeez. And Daffy Duck, Chuck Jones kind of made him into a greedy, negative kind of character. But Larry Doyle really emphasized that, like this something untoward happened to some of the characters, and Daffy Duck just replies, "Welcome to my world."
Yeah. Wow.
Stuff like that. I don't know. I really love the old Daffy. I loved the Daffy I grew up with, which was the Bob Clampett Daffy, the wacky one,
Yeah.
He was wacky, silly, and friendly. And then as the years went by, maybe they got tired of that wacky part of him and turned him in kind of a mean guy who beat up on Speedy Gonzales all the time.
Jeez.
And did all sorts of antisocial activity. And then that was compounded by Larry Doyle working on a Looney Tunes Back in Action.
And what else do you remember from Looney Tunes Back in Action?
I did a big concluding sequence in that where we had every character we could think of, including Egghead and the little squirrel from Much Ado About Nothing, and and the little duck from Yankee Doodle Daffy, that sucked on an all-day sucker, and all kinds of strange, obscure characters. And we put them all in one scene. And I really kind of enjoyed getting into that. I did a lot of research for it and looked at all their characteristic walks. And we just loaded that scene with extraneous Looney Tunes personalities.
Yeah.
But then that scene came under the gaze of management, and they really kind of chopped it to pieces and removed a lot of things. And it was kind of discouraging.
Yeah.
But the first pencil test was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Enjoyed that part of it.
What a shame.
Yeah, I just animated here and there and around, but at least I was still animating, And I wasn't compelled to be a story person 80% of the time, so I could animate 20% of the time. That's what happened a lot.
But oh, really? So I was going to say, is that what you wound up doing or not?
No, I didn't wind up in the story department that way, but at Disney, I certainly did a lot of story work, more story work than I really wanted to do.
Okay.
But I fortunately got to do a little animation at Disney, and I really loved what I did,
Yeah.
Like the Donald Duck stuff in Noah's Duck. I rehearsed. There was no director assigned to that before Francis Glebus got on it.
Yeah.
And they had a handful of animators, and we basically did our own layouts, and we came up with gags just with Donald and the animals, like Donald being sat on by a big hippo. And I did a scene with a camel spitting. The camel spit around Donald, all kinds of wacky stuff like that. And I just did one little test scene after another. I kept inventing stuff for me to do.
Yeah.
When I worked on Fantasia 2000, we had a director named Sarah Petty who did a wonderful little short called Furies with a couple of cats that she had invented.
Right.
And I did a lot of development for that little version of Beethoven's Fifth.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the Beethoven's Fifth piece, which was probably, in my mind, the most troubled sequence of that film, because it was just a hard nut for anyone to crack. And Sarah Petty was one of a number of directors that were trying to make that work.
Yeah, she tried really hard. And I did a lot of experimental animation that was kind of in her style. With these real streaky looking characters. And I even did some stuff where we were shooting tests, and we could do negative color. We could do a negative color, like, for instance, red was reversed to green, things like that. The colors were reversed to their complements. And some of those colors actually took on a glow to them, which was kind of exciting. And I really liked some of the effects that we were starting to get in that, but no, eventually that got stopped too.
Yes.
And I told you about the Roger Rabbit sequel I worked on. Did that in that building.
The early development on it, right?
Yeah, with the magician's rabbit, the magicians, and the main reason they were doing it was to see whether you could do CG props with a traditional animated character. And Eric animated some of that stuff. I never even got to see it.
Yeah,
but I did a lot of the boarding on that. And Frank Marshall was the producer.
I think wasn't at that time, weren't they trying to do a CG Roger Rabbit too, where they were experimenting? They wanted to do a comparison.
I think it was that CG or traditional or whatever sequel was started at least 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
and a lot of it was kind of came down to a video game, you know. Yeah. And the trouble with that approach is that an audience has got to have something, some personality to hang on to. At least in the original Roger, he did have somewhat of a personality, you know. Yeah, he really cared about his wife, and he was also a wacky comedian at the same time who had pretty good timing.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just he has become sequel proof. You know, I don't think they'll ever do a sequel.
You know what? I mean, sometimes there's properties out there where you just don't need to do a sequel.
Right. Well, we did the shorts. We did all 3 shorts.
Yeah.
I mean, that was enough.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think there's been talk on and off of trying to get Tim to do a sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
And it's sort of like, why? You know, why do a sequel? You know, I mean, it's not really a sequel if you're going to go into a different holiday world.
Right.
You know, it's just a different movie. So
I'll tell you why we need a sequel to those movies is because the money.
Well, that's what's driving that's what's driving these quote franchises.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Aljon and I, we talked about, like, Bad Boys Ride or Die, which was, came out a while ago. It's the 4th one. You could have put all 3, the first 3 in a blender and poured out this one, so.
Is that sort of like that Mad Max sequel that just came out and didn't do real good?
The Mad Max I went to see. I think it was a very good film, but there seems to be a problem with the box office with people getting to the theaters. Mm. And not to go on a tangent, I will say though, Mark, I think going to the movie theater has become a bad experience for the most part.
Yeah.
Because I go to the movies on a weekly basis and, I can't tell you how many times the house lights are left on when the movie starts. Oh, they have a problem with the projection, a problem with the sound. I mean, there's just, it goes on and on, all the issues. And I can't tell you every year, it seems like, I must go out dozens of times to get a manager to say, could you wake up the projectionist or could you have them shut the house lights off or do something, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And people have choices now, and that's what's going on in this entire industry. Yeah. The sands are shifting so quickly and people have so many choices where to spend their entertainment dollars that, they're not going to the movies because they can stream it at home on a big flat panel television.
Right.
And the theater chains are not doing anything to improve the experience of seeing a movie, a communal experience of seeing a film in an auditorium. Anyway, I don't want to go on a rant here, but let's get back to you, our guest.
Did you see that documentary they just finished about the Florida studio?
I have not seen it yet.
It's really riveting. I thought I watched 10 minutes of it, and an hour and a half later, I was still watching it.
Yeah, is that up on Disney Plus?
I don't know where it is. If somebody that made it, I'm in it a little bit. Somebody sent a link to me.
Oh, okay.
I watched. I don't know if it's a rough cut or what it was.
Okay,
but I had no idea how that studio ended. Nobody. Yeah, it closed in 2004.
Yep,
and
abruptly.
Yeah, Aaron Blaise, who I knew when they first employed him there, did a little picture called Brother Bear, and I don't think Brother Bear did real good at the box office, which didn't help the studio. But they were actually building a better facility for the animators in the parking lot, in the back of the studio. And they were trying to design it, with hallways and special doors and special story rooms, and all of which were not available to be seen by the public. It was to take the key guys out of the bullpen, out of the spotlight, because I guess a lot of them were bothered by, the guests watching them all the time.
Well, they were in a fishbowl.
Yeah. I didn't think it was so bad. I got used to it when I worked there. I only worked there 7 months, but I got to the point where I didn't even see them anymore. I was so involved, just concentrating on what I was doing, that I didn't care whether they watched me or not.
Yeah,
but
it's like city noise. You get used to it. You just don't pay attention.
And we couldn't even hear them. The soundproofing was so good. The only time we were aware was when we looked up at the windows, and there they were.
Yeah, it's called Beyond the Glass, the WDW animation building.
Exactly.
And Aljon is saying it's on YouTube, Aljon?
Sure is.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to check it out.
They built that building, and they just started development on another project. Aaron Blaze is featured in it quite a lot, because he was the last man standing there, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then one day, just pulled the plug.
Well, it does correlate with the Walt Disney Animation Studios changing over to CG,
right?
And also some of the movies being soft at the end of the 2000s into the at the end of the 1990s and into the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think it was a financial decision, because it wasn't long after that they closed the Paris studio.
Yeah, but they showed footage of them putting all the animation desks, which were sort of fashioned after the Kem Webers, all wrapped up in bubble wrap, all packaged to be shipped somewhere, and they didn't even know where they were going to send them. So I guess some of them went to Ringling School or some of the art colleges, but they had so many desks, I don't know where they all went.
Yeah, they said they shipped some of it back to Los Angeles, and those were animation desks that were designed. They were inspired by the Kem Weber animation desks.
Yes,
and they were built by a Canadian company.
And you've written a book about those.
Yes, I mentioned them. I mentioned them in my book on Kem Weber furniture. Absolutely.
Yes, but it made me kind of sad to see what happened to the studio.
Yeah.
When I was working there, they tried to get me to stay, but my spider sense sort of told me they're not really that serious about this studio.
Yeah.
I just don't see it going on very long.
Yeah.
So
it was an attraction that they decided to change out, essentially.
Right. We just had the 35th anniversary of Back to Neverland. I went to that at the studio.
Yeah.
Jerry Reese and Rebecca were there, and Bruce Smith and Steve Moore and a lot of the key guys were there on the panel, and I was watching them from the audience. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. It was fun seeing all those guys again.
Let me ask you, what have you been doing? You're not retired. You're still you are somebody who has been in the business for a good 50 years.
No, actually, my active years were more like 37.
Really?
I didn't really work that long.
Well, but wait a second. In our first episode that we had with you, you talked about working on the Yellow Submarine. That was what, 1968?
That was the first summer I came out here.
Yeah.
I moved to California, and I didn't even know I was moving to California. I thought I was going to be here for 2 weeks.
By my calculation, that would be 56 years.
Yeah, but I've done a lot since I retired basically around 2004, 2003, somewhere in there. But I did manage to make 2 short cartoons.
Okay, on your own.
Yeah, and I started those cartoons in downtime. On Osmosis Jones. We had so much downtime because they couldn't make up their minds what they wanted us to animate, that I thought, either I'm going to sit around here and drink coffee and shoot the breeze with my fellow inmates, or I'm going to do something. Yeah. And I had this little storyboard I developed. I listened to an old record called It's the Cat, done by Harry Reeser Syncopators in 1927. I love old 1920s music. So I thought, I'm going to...
Like the Ink Spots.
Yeah, well, they were more of a dance band. The X-Bots were a vocal group, although there is a vocal section in It's the Cat.
Okay.
But it's just this neat little jazz beat. It's a 9-frame beat, and very difficult beat to animate to because it's on odd numbers, not even numbers. So it forces you onto ones a lot. I was doing a lot of animation on ones, and I didn't know if I'd ever finish it, if it would ever be in color. But my friend Greg Ford in New York took up the cause, and offered to help me finish it. And I was so thrilled that he did that. He got some really great old ink and paint people from Famous Studio and other places, and they did a lovely job inking and painting that cartoon. And I was so happy when it was done.
And what'd you do with it? Did you put
We entered it in festivals all over the world. We entered it in the Academy Derby, and it got to the second screening, but it didn't get beyond that.
Okay.
And then I made a sequel to it called There Must Be Somebody Else, which was a recorded by a band named Fred Rich and his gang. And God, I like that one even better. I think it turned out better because I had a good rehearsal for the style, making the first one. And then the second one tells more of a story. It tells a story of jealousy of the cat, going to his girlfriend Pearlie's house only to see two silhouettes on the shade. And he gets very, very sad. And eventually he does extremely antisocial things to his rival, He beats him up and does all kinds of horrible things. But then he finds his girlfriend really likes the rival better. So the poor It's a Cat gets thrown out of the house.
There you go.
But so it had a little intrigue to it, just all in 3 minutes,
I was going to say how long. So it was 3 minutes.
Two little 3-minute shorts. If you spliced them together, they're roughly 7 minutes.
Okay.
And I did every drawing in them because there was no budget to hire an assistant, no budget for anything. And I had no idea where the money was going to come from to ink and paint it. So I did come up with a little of the money, but Greg Ford really helped with that too. And the music rights were unbelievably convoluted. I
completely believe that, especially from that time period, because did you have to actually do a quick claim on some?
I don't even know what a quick claim is.
Where you take on all the risk. In other words, you pay to license it, but the person that quote owns it doesn't have any paperwork, so they push the liability onto you.
No, I did everything right. I approached the actual owners of the copyright of the song, which in the case of There Must Be Somebody Else was the Bourne Company, which owns all the early Disney
stuff,
Snow White and Pinocchio and all that stuff. Sure. And I approached them very early because the earlier I get on this, the better it'll be, because they'll know about my project and it won't be a rude surprise to them and all that stuff. And I thought I was going to get along okay, but then they decided, we'll charge you $5,000.
Really?
So I thought, boy, that's a lot of money for a whole song. But I paid it because I was in too deep to back out. Wow. And my discipline, of course, was to animate everything on the record, all the glissandi, all the effects, all the cat yowls and howls and all that stuff. And I made it all match and tried to make it all part of the story. Mm. So it took a long time to do those shorts. It took nearly 20 years to do both of them. Because
is that right? So you only, when did you finish the second one?
2012.
2012.
Yeah. Okay. And by that point I was no longer doing pro stuff. I spent a year animating one scene in There Must Be Somebody Else.
Wow.
Just taking one scene which had 3 characters in it. And I spent a whole year just doing that and correcting it until I really, really liked it. Mm. So I'm so happy, Dave, that I got to make those, because I worked on so many things that never got finished. We did boards for a lot of stuff. Like you remember the Betty Boop feature that Jerry Reese was going to do? And Rebecca, we started. Steve Moore did all the character design for that. It was called Hooray for Betty Boop. Well, I think we worked about a year on that. And Richard Fleischer, the son of Max, was involved with it, who also directed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Right.
We thought, we got it made because, we've got the Fleischer family connection, and we thought MGM really was going to like it. MGM was going to release it. Well, one day MGM changed presidents.
And that was the
new president said, "What is this? We never made Betty Boop. Why are you making this? Get rid of it."
And that was the end of it.
All laid off.
Wow.
And we were so mad. We set up a picture of the guy, of the new president. We all threw eggs at it. That's how we worked off our angry feelings, by throwing eggs at his picture.
But it's interesting, Mark. The fact that I had no idea that you had done 2 shorts on your own, but you look at Andreas, he did his Mushka film.
Oh yes.
And you look at John Musker with I'm Hip, and
I got a story about that, Dave.
Yeah.
I talked to John at the reunion for Back to Neverland, and he said, "I made I'm Hip because I like your shorts so much." He says, I wanted to do a record, and I wanted to do a cat character, and by God, he did it.
Wow.
So it's really gratifying to think that my little short cartoons, amused John to that point. Yeah, I've known John since he was a student
at Cal
Arts. He used to come over to my house for my cartoon shows. I ran several cartoons for him. God, that goes back a long way.
Yeah. And again, Mark, thank you so much for being on the Skull Rock podcast.
And thank you. I'm really gratified that I could do it. Thank you so much.
Let me tell you about the great Disney travel deal for this week, because the monitor got back on. Yay. You can save on rooms at select Disney resorts this fall and holiday season. It is that time of year after all. So take advantage of this deal. Now you can contact Kristen at themeparksandcruises@gmail.com to save. You can take advantage of her expertise and navigation of the Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and so many more theme parks and cruise lines, little travel portals, so you don't have to do it yourself. All right. And you can save on tons for your vacation. You can see I'm vamping because I'm trying to get everything back up and running here. But you can stay in the magic this fall and holiday season at select Disney Resort hotels. Save up to 30% on rooms for stays most nights November 24th through December 25th this year. You can enjoy savings Sunday to Thursday nights from October 6th to November 21st. What a deal. Plus, get free park hopper benefits when you take advantage of this offer and upgrade to a Walt Disney hotel room and ticket package that includes non-discounted 4-day or longer date-based theme park tickets with Park Hopper. So hop all you like and save up to 30% at all these great Disney resorts like Animal Kingdom Lodge, Boardwalk Inn, the Beach Club Villas Resort, Port Orleans. You can save up to 25% on some of the other more popular resorts like Bay Lake Tower and Disney's All-Star Sports and Coronado Springs, my personal favorite, right? So there is tons of savings to be had. Explore all the different ways you can save by contacting Kristen today at themeparksandcruises@gmail.com. But wait, there's more, because Universal Orlando has a brand new ticket deal as well, surrounding all that hype around Epic Universe. And so it's all going to be there for your taking. Halloween Horror Nights is really just a few weeks away when it comes down to it. And I love Halloween Horror Nights. That is great if you're a horror movie buff, a scare buff like myself. Of course, the new DreamWorks land is also open with Shrek and Kung Fu Panda and Trolls, all the stuff that my kids love. Absolutely. So go ahead. You can do this Florida residence exclusive deal for unlimited day ticket, providing access to Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure for an unlimited number of days now through December 18th this year. It's a big deal, right? It's only like $199 plus tax. It's absolutely amazing. It won't get you into Hollywood Horror Nights because that's another separate hard ticket event, but a great deal nonetheless. Take advantage of that deal and so much more for the Universal Orlando Resort, as well as Universal Studios over there at on the left coast, or Disneyland, or the Disney Cruise Line and the new Treasure Ship, or any cruise line whatsoever. Once again, book with Kristen for get your free quote today. Save on all these great deals. Once again, themeparksandcruises@gmail.com. That's themeparkandcruises@gmail.com.
This is Fraser McLean, Animation Mongrel. You're listening to the Skull Rock podcast.
Your attention, please. Now loading on track number 1. for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Skull Rock Podcast.
All aboard!
Your Main Street to the world of Disney.
Oh, yes. Mark Kausler, the final installment here, show 200, as he talks about the renaissance of Disney and his involvement. Once again, just scratching the surface of him. And it was great hearing the out of order episodes I put this in. Okay, I'll take the blame for it. But his filmmaking, or his film preservation and collection last week, and of course his storybook kind of run throughout Disney and making films and commercials. What a great personality for Mark. Thank you, Mark, for being on this show for episode 200.
Yeah, no, it was terrific. I was so glad that, we had Mark's four interviews, the 4 weeks that we've had him on, and on the 200th episode, Aljon. 200 episodes. Unbelievable.
I can't believe it. And on that note, it's just been a great 200 episodes, and cheers for 200 more. This is just an amazing show, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And we are so happy that you are a part of this Skull Rock podcast family.
And it's wonderful getting feedback and hearing comments from listeners all over the world. I mean, it's just absolutely heartwarming to get those messages from people like, in Kenya or Taiwan or Australia or someplace in Europe. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. And we love hearing from you. So I hope you'll send us some notes telling us what you think about the 200th episode.
I love it. Well, thank you so much once again for listening. We do appreciate it. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show everywhere you find podcasts, including our brand new YouTube page. Please check that out. We would appreciate it. You can give us a like on Facebook, X, LinkedIn. Dave and I are both on there. Instagram, of course. And be sure to check out skullrockpodcast.com for the show archives. You can also email us, Dave or Aljon, at skullrockpodcast.com. You can also find me on my other podcast, Dining at Disney, with 2 shows a week. Please subscribe to diningatdisney.com, where we talk about Disney parks and Disney food. It's amazing. You can also find me on Instagram at AljonGo. Dave?
Well, I got to tell you, Aljon, the tunes behind the tunes on Sirius XM, Disney Hits, Channel 133. We have a new show dropping in August. There's always a new show dropping the first Tuesday of the month. And for the month of August, I'm spotlighting Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas, nice. Which is where I discovered the term demo love.
Yeah,
because I fell in love with the demo of that song. You can also go to theoldmillpress.com. I've got a new book coming out in September, Find Your Happy Place, the 8-step guide to boosting your creativity through a personal retreat. You can get author-signed copies there. And of course, you can always check out my personal website, davidbossert.com. I have tons of free content. You can read about stuff. There's links to all of my books. There's all kinds of, there's a free stuff tab. There's everything under the sun. So visit that. And with that, Aljon, I'm going to say go out and have a fantastic week, everybody. Be kind to one another. We'll see you back here next Monday on the Skull Rock Podcast for the 201st episode.
Whoa.